and welcome to the Aisle Collective. I'm Kenzie.
And I'm Rachel. With over 350 weddings under our belts, we help you create a wedding filled with big moments, real connection, fabulous decor, and experience-focused celebration that will have guests reliving your event for months to come.
Each episode, you'll hear us share our favorite and not so favorite wedding day experiences from real-life weddings. We chat about trends in the industry and interview experts so that you have the best tools as you plan your once-in-a-lifetime occasion.
Hey guys, so today we're talking about venue managers versus wedding coordinators. There is a lot of jargon around this in the wedding industry, and these terms are easily confused, which can really throw a wrench in your wedding day if you don't have the right expectations based on the vendor that you've actually chosen to work with. So for the purpose of clarity, I'm just going to lay this out at the beginning of the episode. In this episode, we're referring to venue managers as venue managers, but they are sometimes referred to as venue coordinators in the industry. A venue coordinator is different than a wedding coordinator, or sometimes known as a day of coordinator. So there is a difference in roles between a venue manager and a day of coordinator, but some venues call their venue managers venue coordinators. And I've seen this cause a lot of confusion. So if you're confused, great, stick around. We're going to have Kenzie explain this for us. She has so much knowledge on this. So Kenzie, walk us through this because you have so much experience in all of these areas. Walk us through the differences between the terms and what brides need to know as they move forward with booking these vendors.
This is a topic I have big feelings about, Rachel, because if you mess this up, you guys, it is a big deal for your wedding day. So as someone who has done both roles and easily gets confused for that on the day of your wedding, I would love to kind of share. So I feel like there's kind of 4 different jobs here that I get swallowed up into all the time. Obviously, there's like the venue manager that you just kind of hinted at, of like somebody that works for the venue, that runs the venue. And to give a high level description, I feel like they're just there honestly to make sure you don't burn the place down. Like they're kind of like the overseer. I can say that because that was my job at one point. Okay. Like they do a lot for you and you want to make sure your venue has one. And I'll get into that, but also know that they are not there to run the entire day for you. That is your day of coordinator. Okay, so a day of coordinator is somebody that is there to handle all of your setup, handle your teardown for you, work with all of your vendors, keep you on your timeline, like put out all of those little fires that you don't want to worry about. And so that person is more crucial than anything, in my opinion. I mean, it is my job, but also, I think it's so important because that's what's going to keep you from being stressed out on your wedding day. That's what's going to keep your parents from having to do all of the work that day. It's a professional that makes all of everything flow so smoothly. I often describe it as like the glue between all of the vendors. Like you can have an awesome photographer and an awesome DJ and an awesome caterer, but if somebody doesn't tell catering when to serve dinner and the DJ when to announce it, and you know what I mean, like your photographer, make sure they're all set up, like there can be a huge gap there, and I'm kind of the glue that holds all of that together. So that is kind of the role of your day of coordinator. Now there's 2 other things I also want to talk about in today's episode. So just giving kind of an outline of where we're headed. I get asked a lot of like, should I even have a personal attendant if I have a day of coordinator? The answer for me is always a yes, and we will get into that. And then also a wedding planner. Like, what is the difference between that then and the day of coordinator? So there is a lot to unpack here. That's kind of our outline. But let's start with venue versus day of coordinator. Rachel, I'm sure you have seen where this gets confused walking into the day of the wedding. We've all had that bride that's like, oh, my venue includes that for me. And like I said before, the venue manager oftentimes is only there to like open the space for you, make sure everything is going okay. Like, you guys, they're the person that you call if the toilet gets clogged, or like the heat isn't working, or the lights need to be dimmed. Like, that is their job. And then from there, they're pretty hands off, and as they should be. Like, their job is to be the one that oversees the property. Now, like I said before, that day of coordinator is somebody that is in the weeds on everything. So they have worked with you before. They have sat down and gathered all of the information of how you want your day executed, what you want it to look like. They've like touched base with all of your vendors ahead of time so that way they know how to run your day really well for you. That is not something that somebody could just pick up. Like I've had people ask me before, like, oh, can you just I just want the day of. And I'm like, well, I would not be doing you a service at all if I only showed up for the day of. Like there is so much more work that goes into it. Building your timeline with you, working with you to make sure that your day is going to run really smoothly so that I'm set up for success as your coordinator, but also you guys have a flow of how everything's going to run. Everybody has great expectations going into the day of how things are going to go. I just think that that's a crucial part of being a day of coordinator is like some of this pre-work that goes into it for sure.
Okay, so that is super helpful as just sort of laying out what those different terms are, Kenzie. And I know what you're saying because I see this a lot as a photographer where I'll see an inquiry come through. It's one of the questions on my inquiry form is who are you working with for your planner? And I see a lot of people will say, we actually don't need a planner. We have a venue coordinator. And it's always such a cringe moment for me that I feel like I have to address on our discovery call because there is so much jargon that people just aren't aware of. And I think that venues sometimes do a disservice to brides when they say, oh, you don't need a day of coordinator or you don't need a wedding planner because we have a venue coordinator. But those are such different roles, as you just said, just because they're using a different term. You got to remember those people are still there for the venue. They're not there for you. They are employed by the venue, not by you.
So I used to work for a venue and it broke my heart when sometimes people would show up and think that, the venue was responsible for certain things. And I'm like, gosh, in our contracts and everything, it's laid out pretty clearly. And so I think it is a really important question that you need to be asking your venue proactively and also reading through all of your contracts of what is expected of them. Now I will also bring up another nightmare of if your venue has nothing at all. If your venue does not come with a venue manager, that's a huge red flag because there are things that are going to come up that day. As much as we plan and prepare, there are just things that you can't be braced for ahead of time. And so it is crucial that your venue has ample staff to handle things, whether that be parking attendants or, people to check in on the bathrooms, just somebody to ask questions to that day because there are going to be things that come up. So for sure, having a venue manager, I'm not trying to downplay their role by any means, but also acknowledging that it's very different than having a day of coordinator who is going to run everything and hold your hand all day.
Right. And I will say that as a vendor who is, neither on the venue side or the planning side or the coordination side, I go to all three vendors for different things as your photographer. So if I see a problem in the bathroom, I'm going to let the venue manager know. If I see, if we have a problem with, not a problem, but let's say we need to talk about timing for when people are going to walk down the aisle. Right? When are your bridesmaids actually going to walk down the aisle? That's something your coordinator's taking care of. The planner is overseeing, some bigger, larger detailed, well, I don't want to get into it too much because that's your role, Kenzie. So I'm going to let you talk about that. I know today we're focusing on the difference between a venue manager and a day of coordinator. Frankly, I don't think you can have a wedding without both. But wedding planner is another term that gets really confused. I think that a lot of people think that if they have a wedding planner, they're not in charge of planning their own wedding. That's also a term that I see get confused with day of coordinator. So can you just touch on the difference, even though that's not really the purpose of today's episode? Just give us a little synopsis.
Of course. So wedding planner and a coordinator, the difference between the two, a planner is involved in the weeds from, the moment you get engaged and then until you say I do, honestly, it is a full hand holding through the entire process. Whereas your day of coordinator, I feel very passionately that they should be involved in some portion of your planning process. You cannot just show up on the day of somebody's wedding and expect it to go well without doing some work ahead of time. But with that being said, the day of coordinator for me is we touch base, right when they book with me. We build out a timeline so that way they have some sort of a starting point, some sort of a framework to go off of as they're planning for the next several months or even year. And then we do another touch base meeting about 4 to 6 weeks out from the wedding to gather all of the final details of how they want things executed. And then I'm communicating with the vendors that month of, here's the timeline, here's how, they want things executed, all of that. And then the day of is I'm there from start to finish. So with that being a day of coordinator, a wedding planner is much more involved. Like, they're going to help you pick out all of your vendors. They're going to help you with your event design, how you want things to look. They're going to go to all of those vendor meetings with you to hold your hand with every step of the process. But like you said, Rachel, I think that sometimes people get confused of like, oh, well, I want to be the planner. Like, I'm super type A. I want to be in charge. And in no way does a wedding planner scoot you aside and say, oh, this is like my day, here's how we're going to run it. It's more so walking with you with so much experience under my belt to help say, hey, here are your options in this. Here is my expert opinion, having seen it so many times. And here are just different ways that we could go about it. And so I would challenge somebody that says like, oh, they're going to take over my planning process, to just say, hey, no, like, we're going to walk with you alongside and help bring your vision, like your dream wedding to life. I had my wedding, I got my dream day, and now it's your turn. And so let me help you, kind of navigate all of those hard decisions. Like, I had a meeting with a bride this afternoon, and there were several times where she looked at me when a vendor would ask her questions of like, crap, I don't know what I want. And then I was able to help share insight of like, hey, well, these are your options and this is pros and cons to each. So that's kind of the difference there, if that answers your question for wedding planner versus day of coordinator.
Yes, I think hopefully that's helpful to anyone who's trying to decide which roles they need. Like I said earlier, I don't think you can have a wedding at this point without a venue manager, because I can't even think of a venue that doesn't have a venue manager on staff. I'm sure they exist, but I agree, that would be such a huge red flag. That's such a liability issue for them. They really need someone, and for you, frankly, as the person renting the space. And then I really do think everyone needs a day of or month of coordinator. And if you are working with a wedding planner, that's something they're usually handling as well, right? That falls under their role. So, but you had brought up personal attendant before. So let's touch on that really quick, because that's also a different role. That's a very personal role that's separate from what the wedding coordinator is doing. Can you touch on that and what you think their job is?
Yes, I get asked that all the time. Like, now that I have a wedding coordinator, do I still need a personal attendant? And my answer is usually yes. Like, it's not a absolute necessity, but it is so nice, because that day you want me running around and like setting things up for you, making game day decisions, dealing with all of the little fires that you don't want to deal with. And so you don't see me a whole ton that day. Like, as your coordinator, you don't want that person to be attached to your hip because you want them putting out the fires that you don't want to know about. And so having somebody when you need a glass of water, when you need some chapstick, when your dress needs to be fluffed, all of those kinds of things. Or there's lots of times when you're like, oh shoot, can somebody go tell this to whoever? Like, there are so many scenarios where you just need, where you wish you were an octopus with just one more arm that you could go handle things. And that's kind of what that personal attendant role is. And it doesn't have to be, even someone your age. Like, it could be an aunt or just somebody there that day that's there to just love you and serve you and help. Because I've had several brides be like, well, are you going to be around to like fluff my dress in every photo? And that, unfortunately, like, I will gladly do that for you, but that is not my role or what you paid me to do. And it's going to hinder my job as your coordinator to have to fulfill the personal attendance role. So my answer is yes, have both, please.
It's such a special role too, that it can be someone who's really close to you and wants to be there for you and wants to anticipate your every need because they know you and love you so well, which is something that a day of coordinator, yes, they've gotten to know you, but it's probably not quite the same relationship. personal attendant is the one that's going to the bathroom with you if you're wearing a huge dress. You know, like that's the person you want with you all day long. I love personal attendants. We're always best friends by the end of the day because they're with me all day long. They're the ones fluffing the dress, like you're saying, for the photo. They're the ones grabbing water, whatever it is that the bride needs. I'm just going to lay this out there as a wedding photographer and someone who's been in the industry for a long time. I firmly believe that you need a wedding planner, but bare minimum, why does somebody need a day of coordinator? Talk us through that role a little bit.
I love this question because I kind of got a front row seat early on in my career. Like I said before, I used to work for a wedding venue and they could either hire me to be their coordinator or I would sit back and watch as mom and dad tried to fill this role or a personal attendant tried to fill this role. And it was pretty brutal, not gonna lie. So your coordinator is the glue between all of your vendors, and they are the ones that put out all those little fires that you don't want to know about. And so with this hole in your day, you're going to have a lot more stress. You're going to have a lot more work on your hands. So to kind of walk you through like what a day of coordinator even looks like what that package looks like as we sit down to do your wedding. Right off the bat, we would create a timeline together of your day. So we're going to walk through your day months in advance and give you a framework to start planning your wedding. It answers a lot of those questions. Like your caterer is going to ask you what time dinner is. Your, bus is going to want to know what time they want you want to pick people up from the hotel. And those are all things that you're not going to know the answer to. A lot of people, it's their first time planning a wedding. And so those are things that I'm going to help you decipher through from years of experience. And then, so from there, we pick back up at the 4 to 6 week out mark and we do a final meeting. And that's where I take a lot of pride in gathering all of the information of how you want your day executed. And I always say, it's not my day, I want to know how to make a judgment call that you would want made on your day. So I take the time to get to know you, what your priorities are, how you want things to look, how you want things set up. And so that way I can walk into your day confidently knowing that I'm going to do a good job for you. So then after that, the month before your wedding, I'm sending out timelines and communicating with all of your vendors. And one thing I actually added on after I was a bride myself, I learned that your wedding party kind of politely attacks you the week of your wedding and asks all of the questions of, when is my hair getting done? Where do I need to be for pictures? When do I need to show up? And all of those things. They're lovingly trying to ask, but it's so overstimulating as the bride. And that's where you get this extreme decision fatigue of I have made so many choices going into this day. I just want it to be over. And that's the last thing that I want you to be feeling the week of your wedding. So I send out your timeline and I'm communicating with all of your wedding party members so that I'm taking on that brunt of questions and things like that. So then from there, the day of the wedding, your coordinator is a crucial part of your day, if I can say so myself. So a coordinator is somebody that you are dropping off all of your decor. They're handling all of the setup, all of the tear down at the end of the night so that way your parents are with you in the bridal suite in the morning. They are on the dance floor at the end of the night and not sweating over all of these details that they probably don't know. I just think your wedding day is an emotional day for you and your soon-to-be spouse, but also it's a big day for your family. You have your people in your wedding party for a reason because they are, a big part of your life. And so why put them to work that day and not let them enjoy it with you? So, and things like sending you down the aisle, queuing up speeches, doing your grand march, all of those kinds of things that a lot of times I watch the personal attendant shrug her shoulders oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. Those are things that I do all the time. It is not stressful for me to send people down the aisle. That is part of my job and a part that I love. So having somebody that is the expert in all of those things that knows how to guide you through your day with no stress is just a huge piece of it. I had a mentor that used to say, why spend, if it maybe, let's say it's $50,000 on a wedding, why spend 50 grand and not spend, a couple extra thousand on, making sure that it goes really well. Like that can be an insurance for, this entire investment that you've made into a huge, special, memorable day. So I think, again, it's my job and I love what I do, but I just think it's an essential part of every wedding for sure.
No, totally agree with that. I mean, as a vendor who is not a coordinator, I'm here to tell you it makes the day 1,000 times better. Weddings fall apart very quickly without them. I really, like I said, I sound like a broken record, but it's true. You just cannot have a wedding without a wedding coordinator. That role needs to be fulfilled, and it will be fulfilled by someone in your family or a friend, and it will be fulfilled badly because they don't know what they're doing, and it's really not fair to them. So as our last question, Kenzie, give me an example of why someone would want each of these roles: venue manager, day of coordinator, personal attendant. Give me a little example of why you need each of these at your wedding.
Okay, venue manager. This is if the building's on fire, if the toilet overflows, if the lights need to be dimmed, if something goes wrong with the property, the fire alarms are going off for no good reason. And I'm just sitting here listing things from experience, you guys. These sound like made up horror stories, but truly I have lived every single one of these and had to call the venue manager because as a coordinator, I don't know where the lights are, where the fire alarm thing is, those are all things that you have to have a staff person for. So if your venue is saying, oh, we don't have, you're just renting the property and there's no venue manager, red flag for sure. Day of coordinator. Why? Some examples of why you need that. I mean, can I say everything? So setup, timeline issues, oh my gosh, somebody spills something down their dress. I am well equipped to get that out and have done it 1,000 times. Questions from your vendors.
Can I just jump in here?
Yes.
Can I jump in really quick? The venue manager does not do that. They're not helping you blot that dress.
1,000%. That's just it, is when I was the venue manager and people would turn to me with questions of oh, how would you recommend doing this? Then I wasn't involved in their planning process. I didn't have that meeting where I sit down and learn what you want for your day. And so then I'd try to help and jump in, and then I'd have them mad at me because that ripple affected into something else that they had planned that I didn't know about. And so it really is, you need somebody who knows what you want that day, how you want it to run, who has taken the time to get to know you and you're not just some other wedding that walks through their door. So, and I'm not going to try to say that venue managers are all bad and they don't care. I'm just saying that they don't know. It's not their job to know what you want for that day. Other examples of day of coordinator things. I mean, like I said before, I feel just even the minuscule, I'm constantly teaching people how to cut their cake, what that looks like, how to do their first dance. People are oh my gosh, I don't know how to twirl or dip or anything. I'm constantly walking you through these little moments of your day and guiding you to make it seem really polished, even if you haven't prepped for it. So it is what I eat, sleep, and breathe with over 200 of weddings of experience. Just trust me, you need a coordinator. Okay, final one, personal attendant. Examples of why you need this on the day of your wedding. Like I said before, you need a water. You need to go tell somebody, you forgot that you didn't communicate with a certain person about something they need to do that day. Anything that you need to communicate, you're stuck in the bridal suite because you probably can't see the groom before the first look. So you need somebody that can just be an extension of you to help communicate. Things like chapstick, lip gloss, you're going to want to reapply makeup, somebody just be there with you that day through all of the fun moments, and anything that you need, that's that person. Do not rely on your coordinator for that, because you're going to miss out then on things that your coordinator should be doing for you.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We would love to keep planning your big day with you, so make sure that you like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content.
Want to weigh in on today's topic or have any questions for us? All of our contact info, sponsors, and links from today's episode are in the show notes below. See you next time.